The high-stakes job, the city of Dubai, shimmered beneath them, its skyline a breathtaking testament to human ambition. The sun had barely risen, casting golden hues over the towering skyscrapers. Among them, the team of Apex Coatings International was gearing up for another day of high-altitude painting. Suspended by harnesses and ropes, they were tasked with giving one of the city's tallest buildings a fresh new look. Ethan Carter, the team leader, double-checked his safety equipment. With years of experience painting skyscrapers around the world, he had developed an unshakable confidence in his work. But today, something felt different. A nagging unease crept into his thoughts as he looked at his crew. To his left, Ava Mitchell tightened her gloves, her eyes scanning the horizon. She had joined the company 3 years ago, drawn to the adrenaline rush of working hundreds of feet in the air. A perfectionist by nature, Ava took immense pride in her work and had little patience for mistakes. Beside her, Jax Torres cracked a joke about the wind picking up, trying to lighten the mood. Jax was the heart of the team, a risk-taker who never let fear dictate his actions. He was also known for cutting corners when he thought he could get away with it. Rounding out the group was Leo Park, the quiet but dependable technician responsible for maintaining their equipment. Unlike the others, Leo preferred to stay behind the scenes, ensuring everything functioned smoothly. "All right, team," Ethan called out. "We've got a full day ahead of us. Let's stay sharp." The team descended slowly, paint rollers and sprayers in hand. From this height, the ground seemed impossibly far away, the people below reduced to tiny dots. Each movement had to be precise, every step calculated. One wrong move could spell disaster. Ava worked methodically, ensuring even coats as she moved along the structure. Jax, meanwhile, was making impressive progress, almost too impressive. He had a habit of rushing through his work, something Ethan constantly warned him about. "Jax, slow it down," Ethan said through the radio. "We don't cut corners here. Relax, boss." "I've done this 1,000 times, Jax replied, brushing off the concern. An hour into the job, a sudden gasp echoed through their headsets. "Oh, no." Ava's voice trembled. Ethan turned sharply, his stomach tightening at the sight before him. A massive streak of the wrong paint color ran down an entire section of the building. Bright red instead of the designated neutral beige. Worse still, it wasn't just a small patch. It stretched down multiple floors, an eyesore against the otherwise pristine surface. Jax's face turned pale. I didn't realize. I must have grabbed the wrong. Damn it, Jax." Ava snapped. "How do you not check the paint before spraying?" Leo shook his head, already assessing the damage. "This isn't just a quick fix. We're going to need a whole new batch of paint and extra hours to cover this up." Ethan exhaled, his mind racing. The client had been very specific about deadlines. A mistake like this could mean severe penalties for the company, or worse, losing the contract altogether. "We need a plan," he said firmly. "No one says a word to management yet. Let's figure out how to fix this before it gets out of control." The air grew heavy with tension. As they exchanged glances, each member realized the weight of the situation. This wasn't just an ordinary mistake. This was a catastrophe that could jeopardize their jobs. And time was running out. Racing against time, the weight of the mistake settled heavily over the team. Suspended hundreds of feet in the air, the streak of bright red paint mocked them, a glaring error against the beige facade of the skyscraper. Silence filled their headsets as they processed the situation. Ethan, always the composed leader, forced himself to think clearly. Panic wouldn't help them. "All right, we don't have time to waste. We need to fix this before management notices," he said, his voice steady but firm. "Jax, how much paint do we have left?" Jax swallowed hard, still rattled by his mistake. "Not enough to cover that much surface," he admitted. "Maybe just a couple of gallons." Ava let out an exasperated sigh. So what do? We can't just let this sit here. Leo, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke. We could try diluting the red, blending it with a lighter coat first before applying the right color. It won't be perfect, but it might make the mistake less noticeable while we figure out a real fix. Ethan considered the idea. It was risky, but it was better than nothing. Okay, let's do it. But we have to move fast. As the team got to work, Ethan kept one eye on the time. They had only a few hours before the project manager, Mr. Halliday, arrived for an inspection. If he saw the mistake before they could cover it, the entire contract could be on the line. Ava and Jax worked together, carefully applying the diluted paint mix over the red streak. Jax, still feeling guilty, followed Ava's instructions to the letter, his usual cocky attitude nowhere to be found. Keep it even, Ava muttered, her concentration razor-sharp. Any streaks, and it'll just look worse. Meanwhile, Leo rigged up a makeshift pulley system to speed up their supply runs. Every second counted. Ethan checked his watch, 2 hours left. The sun climbed higher, making the already grueling task even more exhausting. Sweat dripped down Ethan's brow as he radioed Leo. How's that mix looking? Almost ready, Leo replied. But we're running out of time. Just then, static crackled in their headsets, followed by an all-too-familiar voice. Team Apex, this is Mr. Halliday. I'm on site. Be ready for inspection in 30 minutes. Ethan's pulse quickened. 30 minutes? That wasn't enough time. Everyone, step it up, he ordered, his voice urgent. Ava and Jax increased their pace, working with near-military precision. Leo handed up the final batch of properly mixed paint just as Ethan grabbed his brush and started blending the last section himself. With only minutes to spare, the team took a step back, hearts pounding. The patch wasn't perfect, but it was no longer a glaring red scar on the building's surface. It might just be enough to fool Halliday, for now. They quickly cleaned their tools and adjusted their harnesses, forcing themselves to look casual just as Halliday's voice boomed from below. Ethan, how's it coming up there? Ethan took a deep breath before clicking his radio. All good, sir. Just finishing up. Halliday nodded, scanning the work from the ground. Looking solid. Keep it up. I want this done on schedule. As soon as he walked away, the team let out a collective exhale. That was too close, Ava whispered. Jax wiped his forehead. I owe you all for this. Seriously, Ethan gave him a stern look. Yeah, you do. But let's just focus on making sure this doesn't happen again. Leo smirked. And maybe double-check the paint next time? Jax chuckled nervously. Yeah. Lesson learned. The crisis had been averted, for now. But as the sun dipped lower, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles weren't over yet. A new threat. The sun had begun its descent, casting long shadows over the city skyline. The air had cooled slightly, but tension still hung thick among the Apex team. They had narrowly avoided disaster, but Ethan knew their troubles weren't over. Mistakes like the one Jax had made had a way of unraveling, and he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at him. All right, let's pack up for the day, Ethan said, his voice still holding the weight of their earlier crisis. We'll meet first thing tomorrow and finish the final coats? The team nodded in unison, relieved to finally take a break. As they unhooked their harnesses and began securing their equipment, Ava pulled Ethan aside. Something's bugging you, she said, arms crossed. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's just, we got lucky today. If Halliday had looked closer, he would have seen the patch job. And that's not even considering the other issue. Ava frowned. What other issue? The wind is picking up, Ethan said, pointing towards the distant horizon. Forecast said there might be a storm rolling in overnight. If it rains before that patch fully dries. He didn't need to finish his sentence. Ava's eyes widened. It'll wash right off, Ethan nodded grimly. And we'll be left with an even bigger mess in the morning? Meanwhile, Jax and Leo were finishing up loading the last of the paint cans onto their supply lift. Jax had been unusually quiet since his mistake, but Leo could tell something else was bothering him. You good, man? Leo asked. Jax hesitated before answering. I overheard Halliday on the phone before he left. He mentioned something about another team flying in to double-check our work. Leo raised an eyebrow. Like a second inspection? Worse, Jax muttered. It sounded like they might bring in another crew to take over if they're not happy with our progress. Leo whistled. If that happens, we're screwed. This contract is too big. Losing it could mean layoffs. Jax kicked a loose paint roller, frustration evident on his face. I already screwed up once. If we don't fix this properly by morning, it could cost all of us. Ethan and Ava approached, having overheard part of the conversation. What's this about another crew? Ethan asked. Jax repeated what he had heard, and Ethan's expression darkened. So we've got two problems now, he said. 1. The storm could ruin our fix overnight. 2. We might have inspectors watching our every move tomorrow. Ava crossed her arms. Then we don't wait for morning. We fix it now. Leo looked up at the darkening sky. We don't have much time before the wind picks up. We'd have to work fast. Ethan considered their options. It was risky, but waiting until morning meant gambling everything on the weather. All right, he said. We're staying late. We fix this tonight. The team quickly suited back up, retrieving fresh supplies. Working by floodlights, they descended back down to the problem area, racing against the encroaching storm. Jax took a deep breath and steadied his hands before dipping his roller into the fresh beige paint. No mistakes this time, he muttered to himself. Above them, the first gusts of wind rattled the scaffolding. The real challenge had just begun. The storm breaks. The wind howled against the towering structure as the Apex team worked frantically under the floodlights. The paint rollers glided over the surface, each stroke a battle against time. The storm was closing in fast, and the distant rumble of thunder sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. Jax, still feeling the weight of his earlier mistake, pushed himself harder than ever. He kept his focus locked on the brush, ensuring every layer was even. How's it looking from your end? He called out to Ava, who was a few feet away on a separate harness. It's holding, Ava shouted back, though her voice carried an edge of worry. But this wind is making things tricky. If it gets any worse, we're going to have to call it. Ethan knew she was right, but they had no choice. They either finished the job now or risked waking up to a disaster in the morning. Leo, Ethan barked into his radio. How's the paint mix holding up? Leo, stationed on a lower platform, checked the consistency. Still good, but it's drying fast with this wind. We need to seal it soon or it'll crack overnight. Ethan cursed under his breath. They needed more time, but nature wasn't giving them any favors. The wind had picked up to a near unmanageable level, causing the rigging to sway dangerously. All right, everyone listen up. Ethan shouted over the storm. We do one final layer and seal it. Then we're out. Ava nodded, doubling her pace, while Jax clenched his jaw and focused. His hands were steady now, determined. He wasn't going to screw this up again. Then, without warning, a gust of wind stronger than any before slammed into the building. The scaffolding groaned under the pressure, and Jax felt his footing slip. Jax! Ava screamed, watching in horror as his harness jerked violently. His bucket of paint tumbled, spilling its contents in midair before plummeting toward the streets below. Jax's breath caught in his throat as he swung dangerously close to the building's edge. He scrambled for a grip, but the wind was relentless. Ethan reacted instantly, swinging himself toward Jax's position. Hold on. I got you. Jax gritted his teeth, his fingers barely finding purchase on the slick surface. I'm slipping. Ava braced herself and, without hesitation, lunged forward, grabbing Jax's harness. You're not going anywhere, she yelled, pulling him closer. With Ethan's help, they managed to secure Jax back onto the rigging. He panted heavily, adrenaline surging through his veins. That was way too close. Leo's voice crackled over the radio. Guys, we need to get down. Now. Ethan looked around, the storm had fully arrived. Lightning illuminated the sky, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. Sheets of rain began to pelt the building, soaking their clothes and undoing their work in real time. No. Jax groaned, watching as the fresh paint streaked and ran under the relentless downpour. Ethan clenched his jaw. We can't fight this. We're getting off this building. Everyone, descend now. Reluctantly, the team began their retreat, moving as quickly and safely as they could. When their feet finally touched solid ground, they stood in silence, watching as the rain washed away their last few hours of effort. Jax ripped off his helmet and threw it to the ground. This is a nightmare? Ava wiped her wet face and sighed. We'll figure it out. We always do. Ethan stared at the damage, fists clenched. They had risked everything tonight, and still, the storm had won. But one thing was clear, tomorrow was going to be the hardest day yet. The team gathered under the shelter of a makeshift canopy near their supply station. The rain drummed on the metal roof above them as they wrung out their soaked clothes. The tension was thick, the frustration evident on every face. We need a plan, Ethan finally said, breaking the silence. We can't afford another setback like this. Leo, still staring at the rain, exhaled. Even if we redo everything, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? The forecast says more storms might roll in. Ava bit her lip, deep in thought. Maybe we can adjust the formula of the sealant. Make it dry faster. Or find a way to work in sections, covering areas as we go. Jax groaned, running his hands through his damp hair. This is on me. If I hadn't messed up earlier, we wouldn't have been racing against the storm. Ethan shook his head. This isn't about blame. This is about solutions. We adapt. That's what we do. The group fell silent again as the rain continued to fall. Then, after a moment, Ava spoke up. "There's something else. We need to check the lower levels of the building. If the paint dripped and stained anything important, windows, sidewalks, statues, we're in even bigger trouble." Ethan's stomach sank. She was right. If the paint had landed where it shouldn't, they wouldn't just be repainting the building, they'd be dealing with serious liability issues. "I'll go check," Jax volunteered, already moving toward the building. Might as well face the consequences head-on. Ava exchanged a glance with Ethan before following Jax. "I'm coming with you." Leo sighed and grabbed a flashlight. "We might as well all go. No point standing around waiting for more bad news." As the team trudged toward the lower levels, lightning flashed above them, illuminating the massive structure they had been working so hard to perfect. They had faced storms before, but something about this one felt different. More personal. As if the building itself was testing them. And they had no choice but to fight back. The aftermath. The morning after the storm, the Apex team gathered at the base of the towering skyscraper, their faces heavy with exhaustion. The air was thick with the scent of wet concrete and fresh paint, though much of their work from the night before had been obliterated by the relentless rain. Puddles of diluted paint streaked the sidewalks, and scattered splashes of white and blue stained parts of the lower walls. Jax stood apart from the group, hands buried in his pockets, his jaw clenched. He hadn't slept much. The events of the night replayed in his mind like a looped nightmare, his near fall, the paint washing away, the feeling of helplessness. Ethan surveyed the damage with a deep frown. "All right," he finally said. "We've got a hell of a mess to clean up." Ava crouched near the building's base, rubbing at a long streak of paint on the pavement with her boot. "We need to check if any of this hit anything important. Windows, decorative stonework, metal fixtures. If we caused damage, we need to fix it before the city gets involved." Leo adjusted his cap and exhaled. "I'll check the windows and sculptures. See how bad it is?" Ethan nodded. "Take Jax with you." Jax snapped his head up, but before he could protest, Leo patted his shoulder. "Come on, man. Let's get this over with." The two walked off, leaving Ava and Ethan staring up at the streaked facade of the building. Ethan sighed. "We're going to have to redo the entire section." "We don't have a choice," Ava groaned. "This puts us behind schedule. We need a way to work faster. Or smarter. We can't afford another setback like this." Ethan crossed his arms, considering. "What if we do smaller sections at a time? Instead of painting in wide spans, we focus on finishing and sealing smaller areas before moving on. That way, even if another storm comes, we don't lose everything." Ava nodded slowly. "That could work, but it means more careful planning. More precision. And we need a way to speed up the drying process. I'll talk to the supplier. See if they have an accelerant or something we can add to the mix." Ethan pulled out his phone. "In the meantime, let's get the team moving. We can't afford to waste daylight." A few blocks away, Jax and Leo inspected the lower levels of the building. The damage wasn't as catastrophic as they had feared, but it was still bad. White and blue streaks marred the glass windows of the lobby, and the decorative stone lions at the entrance now sported abstract splashes of color. Jax ran a hand through his hair. "Damn. This is worse than I thought." Leo crouched near one of the statues, rubbing his thumb over the dried paint. "Could be worse. At least the windows weren't shattered." "We can clean this up." Jax kicked at a small puddle of paint water near his feet. "This is on me. If I hadn't screwed up before, we wouldn't have been rushing to beat the storm. We could have sealed everything in time." Leo stood up and dusted off his jeans. "Look, man. You messed up, yeah. But this job? It's never perfect. You roll with the punches, fix what needs fixing, and move on. Standing here beating yourself up isn't going to clean these windows." Jax gave a short, humorless laugh. "You always this wise?" Leo smirked. "Only when necessary." They set to work, carefully scraping and washing the glass. It was slow, tedious work, but as the morning stretched on, the damage became less obvious. Soon, only the stained statues remained. "We might need a power washer for these," Jax admitted, gesturing to the stone lions. Leo nodded. "I'll let Ethan know." By midday, the team regrouped, their progress encouraging but not enough to erase the setback. "All right," Ethan addressed them. "We're behind, but not out. The supplier has a drying agent we can add to the paint. It'll cut drying time in half. If we apply in sections and seal as we go, we should be able to stay ahead of the weather." Ava raised an eyebrow. "What about the statues?" "Pressure washer," Ethan said simply. "We'll rent one this afternoon." Jax glanced at the ground. "I'll handle it." Ethan studied him for a moment before nodding. "Good." The team broke apart, heading to their respective tasks. As Jax walked toward the supply van, Ava fell into step beside him. "You're not the only one who feels responsible, you know," she said quietly. Jax exhaled. Yeah, but I was the catalyst. Ava nudged him lightly with her shoulder. Then make it right. That's what matters. Jax glanced at her, then gave a small nod. Yeah. The storm had knocked them down, but they weren't out. They had a plan. They had a chance to fix things. And this time, Jax was determined not to let the team down. Rising stakes. The next morning, the Apex team stood in front of the skyscraper, ready to implement their new strategy. The air was crisp, the sun casting long shadows as they divided into teams. Jax and Leo were tasked with removing the paint from the statues, while Ethan and Ava focused on repainting smaller sections and sealing them immediately. Ethan examined the drying agent he had acquired. The supplier says this should cut our drying time in half, but we need to be precise. Too much, and the paint cracks. Too little, and it won't dry fast enough. Ava took the bottle from him, reading the label. We need a test spot first. Ethan nodded. Let's start with the north wall. If it holds, we continue. Jax, meanwhile, had set up the pressure washer near the stone lions. As he powered it on, Leo adjusted the nozzle. Easy pressure at first, Leo advised. We don't want to blast chunks of stone off. Jax followed Leo's lead, carefully directing the spray. The first layers of paint peeled away easily, but the deeper stains clung stubbornly. This is gonna take longer than I thought, Jax muttered. Leo shrugged. We got time. Better to do it right than rush again. As the morning progressed, the team worked efficiently. The test patch on the north wall dried perfectly, allowing Ethan and Ava to move forward. Jax and Leo made slow but steady progress on the statues. The rhythm of their work built a quiet confidence. But just as things seemed to be going smoothly, Ava's radio crackled. Hey, Ethan. You better come see this. Ethan grabbed his radio. What's up? It's the base of the east wall. The paint's peeling. Ethan and Ava rushed over, finding large flakes of fresh paint curling away from the wall. Ethan swore under his breath. Damn it. The sealant didn't hold. Ava ran a hand over the damaged area. It's not just the drying agent. Something's wrong with the wall itself. Look at the surface, it's uneven. Like water got in. Ethan exhaled sharply. That storm must have soaked the foundation more than we thought. If moisture is still trapped inside, no paint is going to stick properly. Jax and Leo joined them, hearing the frustration in Ethan's voice. What's going on? Jax asked. Ava pointed to the wall. We've got a bigger problem than just repainting. This wall isn't ready to hold anything. If we don't figure this out, we'll be stuck redoing this over and over. Leo scratched his head. Maybe we need a different primer? Something waterproof that seals moisture out first? Ethan looked deep in thought. That might work. But it'll take time to get the right materials. And we're already behind? Ava placed a hand on his shoulder. We'll figure it out. We always do. Jax, silent until now, finally spoke. Let me do the research. I'll find the right product and get it here by tonight. Ethan hesitated, but Ava gave a small nod. All right, Jax. This is your call. Jax met her gaze with determination. I won't let you down. The setback was frustrating, but the team wasn't giving up. They had a new challenge to tackle, and this time, they were ready to take it on together. Jax retreated to the van, pulling out his tablet and typing furiously. He scoured forums, manufacturer sites, and contractor reviews, determined to find the best waterproofing solution. Every minute that passed felt like another second slipping away from their deadline. His fingers drummed anxiously against the dashboard as he read through recommendations. Finally, he found what he needed, a specialty primer designed for sealing damp surfaces before painting. He made a few calls and struck gold. There was a supplier with stock just 2 hours away. I can go pick it up, Jax said, running back to Ethan and Ava. I found a supplier with the perfect primer. If I leave now, I can be back before nightfall. Ethan exchanged a glance with Ava. All right, go. But drive safe. We need the primer, but we need you in one piece more. Jax nodded and took off, jumping into the van and heading down the highway. As he drove, thoughts of the past few days flooded his mind. He needed to prove himself, not just to the team, but to himself. He tightened his grip on the wheel. This was his shot at redemption. Back at the site, the rest of the crew pressed forward. Leo and Ava continued the cleanup, while Ethan mapped out their new workflow with military precision. Every delay meant more pressure, but the team refused to buckle. The sun sank lower, shadows stretching over the unfinished mural as they waited for Jax's return. Hours later, just as dusk settled in, the sound of an approaching engine echoed down the street. Jax pulled up, stepping out of the van with a triumphant grin. Got it. And I got extra, just in case. Ava clapped him on the back. Nice work. Let's see if this stuff is as good as they claim. Ethan inspected the containers, nodding approvingly. All right, team. Tomorrow, we start fresh. This time, we get it right? The team let out a collective breath, exhaustion evident but hope rekindled. They had been knocked down, but they weren't beaten. The real test lay ahead, and they were ready for it. The breaking point. The next morning, the Apex team was up before dawn, ready to tackle the final stretch of the project. The skyscraper loomed above them, its unfinished mural a stark reminder of the challenges they had faced. Today, everything had to go perfectly. Jax, still energized from his late-night drive, unloaded the waterproof primer with a sense of urgency. "We mix it carefully and apply an even coat. No shortcuts." Ethan nodded, his eyes scanning the team. "All right, we've got one shot at this. Ava, you and I will handle the application. Jax and Leo, you make sure nothing slows us down. If we get this done by noon, we can start repainting by the afternoon." The first few hours went smoothly. Ava and Ethan worked methodically, spreading the primer over the compromised sections. The new formula clung to the surface, creating a solid foundation. Jax and Leo managed the equipment, ensuring a seamless workflow. By midday, the primer had dried faster than expected, and for the first time in days, things felt under control. Then, the wind picked up. At first, it was a gentle breeze, nothing unusual for a high-rise project. But within minutes, gusts were swirling around the building, causing equipment to sway and debris to scatter. Leo secured the ropes on the scaffolding while Ethan gritted his teeth. "We need to move faster. If the wind gets any worse, we'll have to shut down." Jax grabbed the radio. "Checking the forecast now." His voice trailed off. "This isn't good. Gusts up to 40 miles per hour expected by mid-afternoon. If we don't finish in the next hour, we might not get another chance today." Ava clenched her jaw. "Then we don't stop." The team pushed forward. The new paint adhered well, but the wind made precise strokes nearly impossible. Brushes wobbled, rollers skidded, and every movement required extra effort. Jax held onto a canister as it threatened to topple, while Leo double-checked the harnesses to ensure everyone was secure. Then, without warning, a powerful gust sent a loose scaffolding plank flying. "Watch out!" Ethan shouted as it spiraled toward Ava. She ducked just in time, the plank slamming into the railing behind her. The impact sent a tremor through the scaffolding, and for a heart-stopping moment, Ava teetered on the edge. Jax lunged, grabbing her harness and pulling her back to safety. "Gotcha!" His heart pounded as she steadied herself. Ava exhaled sharply, gripping his arm. "That was too close." Ethan's voice crackled through the radio. "Everyone okay?" "We're good," Jax replied. But as he turned, he saw what no one else had noticed: the gusts had blown paint in unintended directions. Streaks of white now marred the detailed sections they had just completed. Leo groaned. "Are you kidding me? We just fixed that." Ava clenched her fists. "We can fix it again. We have to." But Ethan was already looking at the sky. The wind was relentless now, and dark clouds loomed on the horizon. "We're out of time." The decision hit hard. After everything, they were forced to halt work once again. Equipment was secured, supplies packed away. They descended from the scaffolding in frustrated silence. Back on the ground, Jax kicked a loose stone. "This project is cursed." Ethan shook his head. "No. It's just testing us. And we're not giving up." Ava folded her arms. "So what do we do now?" Ethan took a deep breath. "We regroup. We come back tomorrow, and we do it better. No rushing, no mistakes. Just precision." Leo smirked. "And maybe fewer flying planks?" Jax cracked a grin. "Yeah, I could do without that." The mood lifted slightly, but tension still hung in the air. They were running out of time. Tomorrow had to be the day. As the sun set behind the half-finished mural, the team stood together, determined. No more delays. No more setbacks. Tomorrow, they would finish what they started. The final stroke. The morning sun rose over the city, casting a golden glow on the half-finished mural. Today was the day. The Apex team gathered at the base of the skyscraper, their expressions a mix of determination and exhaustion. This was their last chance to finish what they had started. Ethan clapped his hands together. "All right, team. No distractions, no mistakes. We've got clear weather, minimal wind, and just enough time to make this perfect." Ava checked the paint supplies. "We lost some sections yesterday, but if we work in sync, we can blend it seamlessly." Leo adjusted his harness. "Let's make this mural our masterpiece." Jax, uncharacteristically quiet, stared up at the massive structure. This project had tested him more than any other. He had messed up. He had doubted himself. But today, he was ready to prove he belonged on this team. They ascended the scaffolding, each taking their position. The brushes met the wall, and for the first time in days, the work flowed effortlessly. Every stroke brought the image to life, a towering mural of unity and resilience, a reflection of the team itself. Halfway through the day, Ethan called out, "Jax, we need a smooth transition here." You up for it? Jax inhaled deeply. I got this. With steady hands, he blended the colors, erasing the harsh lines left by the windstorm. The others paused to watch. He was doing it. He was fixing it. As the final touches were placed, Ava stepped back. It's done. The team descended slowly, turning to admire their work. The mural was breathtaking. Bold, vivid, powerful. Leo let out a low whistle. Not bad for a bunch of painters, huh? Jax chuckled. Not bad at all. Ethan exhaled, tension finally leaving his shoulders. We did it? Ava nudged Jax. You did good today. He grinned. We all did. As night fell, the team gathered for a small celebration on the rooftop. Music played from a portable speaker, and laughter filled the air. They had been through hell on this job, but in the end, they had pulled through together. Jax raised his soda can. To the craziest job we've ever had. And to the best team around? Ava added. Leo grinned. And to surviving scaffolding disasters? Ethan shook his head with a laugh. Let's just not make a habit of those. The team continued celebrating, recounting the chaos of the last few weeks. Ava mimicked Jax's panicked reaction when the plank flew past her. You should have seen your face. Jax groaned. Yeah. I saved your life, and this is how I get repaid. With eternal mockery? Absolutely, Leo teased, nudging him with his elbow. They watched the mural from the rooftop as the city lights illuminated it. The vibrant colors stood out even in the dim glow, a testament to their resilience and teamwork. Ethan took a deep breath. You know, every time we finish a job, I think, this is the one we'll remember most. But this time, I actually mean it. Ava smiled. Because we almost died? Because we almost failed, he corrected. But we didn't. The team fell into a comfortable silence, each of them reflecting on the journey. They had pushed through exhaustion, frustration, and near disaster, and they had come out stronger. Jax looked around at his teammates, no, his friends. So, when's the next crazy project? Leo groaned. Give it a week, man. Let me enjoy not hanging off a building for a bit. They all laughed, clinking their drinks once more. The Apex team was stronger than ever.